My name is Ed Nardi, Chair of the Natural Resources Commission, and I am calling this public meeting to order at 7:10 p.m. The meeting will be conducted virtually. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the meeting, the public may access this call through video conferencing or telephone. Following the presentation by the petitioner and questions from the commission, members of the public will have the opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment. Please identify yourself with name and address for the record. You can also raise your hand from your phone by dialing *9 and use *6 to unmute. All video screens will be turned off with the exception of the commissioners, Delia, and the current petitioner. Once the commission has acted on an application, the petitioner is free to leave the meeting. Screen sharing will not be permitted unless absolutely necessary, and all votes will be taken by roll call vote. In the event of any technical difficulties, all matters on the agenda that have not been heard will be automatically continued to the, February 2nd meeting, I believe it is?
Yes.
At this time, I would ask the commissioners to introduce themselves. Gary?
Gary Kleiman.
Nick?
Nick Pappas.
Greg?
Greg Higgins.
And Sarah.
Sarah Grimwood.
Thank you all. All right, so first up on the docket, approval of meeting minutes of November 3rd, 2021. I'm going to abstain from that vote. Although I listened to the meeting afterwards, I was not there that evening.
Well, I have one thing that on page 5, where it starts Sue Felshin, it reads kind of weird. What Sue asked about, there was a gas line, if we remember, which is a transmission line going from wherever they get the gas to Maine probably. And Sue misunderstood that and thought that was a gas line created for this property, I believe. And
Yeah.
so the second sentence should be my correcting her. So I think it's got to read something like Sue Felshin, 19 Sunnyside, suggested using electric heat instead of gas, noting the gas line on the plan. Higgins pointed out that the gas line on the plan is a large transmission line and not being used on site. Or something to that nature.
Sure.
But the house will use gas, right?
We don't know. They
don't know.
didn't say, Gary, but I assume they are. But it won't have anything to do with that transmission line.
Right.
So that's what the genesis, that's what that
No.
talk was about. Clearly, she doesn't want him to use gas either. I agree with you, Gary, but that's not what,
That's not the comment. Okay. Any other comments from the commissioners?
I just sent in an editorial one.
Me too.
Okay.
Me too. So,
Nothing for me.
I
Okay.
make a motion to the minutes be accepted as amended.
Second.
Thank you, Gary. And we'll take the vote. Sarah?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Nick?
aye.
Greg?
I
Thank you, guys. All right, director's update.
Okay, so you will recall that the Concord Country Club is installing an irrigation pond at the club here. This is under construction from October 7th on our near maps. We were alerted to a failure of the erosion controls through the environmental monitor who is doing the SWIP reporting. So this is the plan of the irrigation pond here. This is the overflow that goes down the slope into this settling basin here. There's a small riprap sort of overflow here, and then a level spreader that any overflow is piped into this level spreader. We're not entirely sure what happened here. Let me see if I can get some photos up. Are you able to see the photos, or do I need to stop share?
Not seeing the photos, just the plan.
Okay, let me just start that again. Okay, so this is a photo immediately down gradient of, do you see the photo?
Not yet.
Yeah,
no.
Oh, now it's coming up.
yeah, I
Okay.
see it now.
So this is a photograph immediately down gradient of the overflow. This is behind, sort of in this direction is the irrigation pond. This is obviously the silt fence with overflowing silt. Heading down, let's see if I can go through some of these photos. That is a breach that we think was an underground gully. There's a little channel that's not jurisdictional, but you can see there's silt traveling all through here. It did enter the Jenny Dugan wetland system. Let me see if I can pull up that photograph, which is, I'm sorry. Are you seeing the wetlands?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is where it stopped. It's not a lot of sediment. It's a thin layer of fine silts that came off the slope. So I went out there with the assistant town engineer, Justin Richardson, and we met with the general manager, Greg Sincata, and Peter Rapocchio, who's the grounds manager, and directed them to install remediation measures. We, said Stamsky should get out there and tell them what improvements, what measures they need to take, but we suggested that at the top of the slope, that they install like a temporary settling basin. Let me get back to the plan here.
So where on the plan, Delia, was the breach specifically?
So the breach was, what happened was, this slope now is all planted, as is the majority of this area here. And they hydroseeded this actually with Flexterra, but this was not, it was planted, but not, it was, I think, too late in the season for them to get any hydroseed down. So there was gullying that occurred down here in 2 or 3 different locations that basically traveled into this sediment forebay. And then this didn't function properly. This is supposed to, fill up and then overflow. There's a little catch basin here with a pipe that then outlets to this level spreader. So this is supposed to fill up. This is all sort of riprap here. It's supposed to fill up and then just diffuse. And I think because we've got, we always sort of warn against this with the frozen ground conditions, the water just traveled over the top. It wasn't stabilized. It carried sediment with it as it was rilling down these slopes. And then I don't know, we're puzzled as to what happened in this area here. What appears to have happened is this is the low point of this basin here, which has some water. There's appears to be some undercutting where there's a channel that was undercut through here. And it just conveyed a lot of this, this sediment that was coming off the slope here. It just, that photograph is just about in this location here. So we suggested that they put in, kind of this is down, this is sloping down here. We suggested that they put in some sort of basin up here so that this unstabilized material has somewhere to stop. And then just doing a series of check dams as you go down the slope into those rilled areas. And then as soon as they're in spring conditions, they'll need to replant and stabilize those areas. So that was a disappointment. They are on top of it. They say they will get it taken care of. And that is what we hope to see in very short order.
Is any remediation needed in Jenny Dugan Brook in the wetlands?
Yeah, they'll have to take all of that material out. So as I said, it's a light layer of silt, but that will have to be removed by hand, and all the sediment laden leaf material going back up. So it's about 100 feet from where the breach overtopped the erosion control barrier and traveled down into the wetlands. So there was obviously some velocity associated with that. On a positive note, last night, CPC recommended their projects for the warrant, including $1 million for the Assabet Bluffs housing project. And we have, since the last time I updated the commission on this, I'm going to share my screen again. This is the Assabet Bluff project. Initially, this was the 6-lot subdivision that we understood is sort of the scenario that if the landowner were to sell and it were bought by a private developer, this is what could be in place with no option for any public access. When we became involved in discussions with the landowner and the housing and land trust groups that we're working with on this, we started with 10 new units as like a Riverwalk style development. So the green area is showing what would have been preserved as open space, and then this is the developed area with 10 new units, car barns, and then the existing duplex here would be either rehabilitated or rebuilt, demo and rebuilds. That was not met very favorably with the neighbors, and so we worked to reduce that down to 6 new PRD units and the existing 2. And we still felt like there was more open space possibility here. So where we are at this point is at this point now where we've got about 1 acre of housing here. So it will purchase, the current proposal is to purchase the entire property for 2.8 million, carve this about 1 acre off for all affordable housing, this existing 2 units and then 3 additional units here, and then to place the majority of the parcel into conservation. And this was met with I would say with enthusiasm with the neighbors that we have been speaking with on the neighborhood calls. I'm sure that's not everybody in the neighborhood, but I think we've got a decent amount of support. So with that configuration, the funding has sort of flipped from it being initially, when we were first talking about it, housing was going to contribute about 2/3 of the funding, and open space interests were 1/3, and we're now flipping that to 2/3 open space and 1/3 housing. And so that sort of breaks down to, well, I don't know if you want the actual breakdowns of it. It's a number of different housing. So from the Community Preservation Act, the funding allocation would be 700,000 from open space and 300,000 from the housing. And then we have, let's see, affordable housing trust funds would be, this is just towards the purchase price. Affordable housing trust funds would contribute 600,000. Concord Housing Foundation, 50,000. And then for the open space, the land trust is committed to 1.05 million. What we're trying to do is have that fundraising reduced. It's pretty substantial for approximately 6 acres of open space and a very short time frame with a July deadline. We are submitting a Land and Water Conservation Fund application. I'm working on that right now. It's due on Monday. We'll also put in an MVP grant. And in the event that the town is not successful in receiving either of those grants, we're looking to see whether there is the possibility of funding from somewhere from the capital improvement plan or ARPA funding, and that's being evaluated right now. So we're really excited that this is moving forward. As you know, many land acquisition projects, there always seem to be a few hiccups along the way where everything seems to go sideways, but we seem to be in a really good place with this right now. So really excited about the CPC recommending favorably for the warrant on this, and fingers crossed on the grants.
Yeah, so it sounds like that's you're within striking distance of the acquisition price of 2.8.
Those numbers that I related to you are for the for the acquisition cost. And then there's equal money coming from fundraising, open space fundraising from the Land Trust and SBT, and housing interests they're both contributing 50,000 towards transaction costs.
Gotcha.
And we've already put in, we've had a couple of appraisals done. We're having a survey done. So we're already putting upfront costs in that we won't be able to recoup, but everybody is contributing to those costs. So it's a great joint project. Really excited about that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic first step. Big step.
Yeah. And then I just, some of you may have heard, we have had several reports of moose in West Concord. We often, hear about, I haven't seen one here in Concord, but we often hear about them in, the Lowell Road neighborhood in Estabrook. West Concord is a little bit more unusual. It's probably a youngster. Came in through some riverine or forested corridor and found itself in a more densely developed.
I saw a video of it, and it is a young moose, not quite full grown, and it was on Hillside.
Oh, okay? Yeah, that's we've had reports from Hillside, Hill Street, and Sorrel. So I it's not unusual. It's very cool to see. But I'm sure, the moose will find its way back into more suitable habitat on its own. So keep your eyes peeled. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Delia. All right, so we've got, I think, 3 continuances, 2 continuances and 1 new application this evening. The first one is notice of intent for Town of Concord Natural Resources Division for 2X Warner Street, 398 Com Ave, 28 Union Turnpike, 976 Barrett's Mill Road, and 123B Elm Street, DEP file 137-1585. And I believe, Alex, are you going to be addressing this evening?
Yes, thanks. Hi, Alex Patterson from EA Engineering. I'm also joined by my colleague Amy Hunt from EA. So our first hearing was on for this project was on December 1st last year, and I think the primary comment that needed to be addressed from the commission after that hearing was a question about clarifying the proposed sediment disposal volume at the final sediment disposal area at the NCC. So in response to that, we took a closer look, did some additional engineering calculations, and have refined the anticipated sediment disposal volume that was summarized in a memo and revised plans that were provided the end of December. And so I'll let Amy go into a little more detail on that. But the only other thing, I guess, or update that I can provide at this point is that we have received comments from DEP, both on the NOI and the 401 water quality cert. And we're in the process of developing responses to those, and we'll share those with the NRC once they're available. And then if there are any other comments or questions that come up at the hearing tonight, certainly we'll do our best to respond to those as well. So take it away, Amy.
Thanks, Alex. Could you go to the figure that shows the orange and green? Yeah, thank you. Yes, so at the last meeting, there was a question on how big would the pile be, and how much material what would the volume of material be in this pile? And so we had we've done some calculations, or we had done some calculations, but we took those calculations and put together a memo that we had sent to Delia that sort of gets into the weeds and the details of how we came up with the size of the pile. but I think to summarize our several page memo here, hopefully I can do that, is so we are excavating the 35,750. These are approximate volumes here, but 35,750 cubic yards of sediment from the pond, and then approximately 4,470 cubic yards of that dredge material will be pumped from, still within the impoundment, from one area of the impoundment to another to make the wetland shelf. So the remaining approximately 31,300 cubic yards of dredge sediment will be pumped hydraulically into the settling area that we have designed to holds that material. And so that material will settle out and will generally be, so that the material that's being hydraulically pumped from the bottom of the pond will settle out to be generally to take up the same volume of material than what was in the pond. The same pore water space between each molecule, but each small particle of sediment will be approximately the same and take up the same amount of volume. However, when the material is fully dewatered and we move it, we have to take into consideration two things. The first one is a bulking factor. So when you disturb material from its initial location within the pond, you introduce air into the material, and the same thing happens when you move the material from the dewatering area to the final placement area. So you fluff it up and you get air into the volume, and so when you place it, it's going to be a little bit, the bulking factor will be slightly bigger. If we're talking about sand, it would be slightly bigger than the volume of material it would take up than the pond. In this case, we have some organic material as well. So because the material, when it's underwater, swells a little bit because it's organic, and organic material tends to absorb more water and take up more space when it's dry, but when it's that's pretty much what happens to organic material underwater. So there's a shrinkage factor also that's associated with the organic material. So taking the bulking factor into consideration, as well as the shrinkage factor with the organic material, the shrinkage factor was a little bit bigger than the bulking factor. So the 31,300 becomes more of a volume closer to 28,000 cubic yards. So that's what we've outlined in our memo and tried to show on the plans here. We did include a factor of safety for this because we definitely have physical characteristics of the sediment in the pond, but there's bound to be some areas, some pockets of things that didn't get sampled. And so we'd like to take that into consideration with a factor of safety. And so have added an allowance for additional storage of about 5,500 cubic yards of material, give or take. So I hope that makes sense, my explanation.
Yeah.
And so just to add to that, if you can go back to that plan, Delia, with the extra safety factor, it basically brings the size of the pile back to what was originally submitted. So this,
right,
the grading shown on this plan is exactly the same as the grading shown in the originally submitted plan. The only difference is that the orange area is kind of our anticipated volume based on the calculations that Amy just described. And so if that holds true, then that would be the size of the pile. And then the additional 3 or 4 contours that are shaded in green are the safety factor that we're requesting as just sort of in the interest of not being, in a position where we only have exactly the amount of space that we think we'll need to place a sediment.
Thank you. Well, and I, just as a follow-up, I think it was a helpful follow-up, because I know last discussion, when we last left that, I was perhaps under the impression that it might be even a little bit smaller in terms of its final volume, on site after all the water kind of settled out of the sediment, if you will. But and I assume like good engineering, hopefully that's relatively conservative in terms of the engineering factors. So hopefully it will hit that 28,000, give or take. But I appreciate you being conservative. Other than that, the higher math is beyond me. So in terms of some of the engineering. Any other comments from the commissioners in regard to the? Okay. Any comment from the public in regard to this petition? Carlin?
Thanks. Carlin Reed, 83 West End. I'm the person who's going to be able to see this dump pile from my house. I have to say, I'm impressed with how much detail both the department and the commission has gone into looking at this aspect of a huge project. And thank you very much for paying attention to this. I do appreciate that. That's it, just my comment.
Thank you, Carlin.
I just wanted to ask a question about, Alex indicated that he also received comments from other organizations and that he'll be responding to those. We'll get to see those responses when they come in, because I'm curious about the wetland shelf that's being developed. I'd been curious about that last time, and I see, several of the questions asked about that as well. So
Yes,
just want to make sure we're going to see those responses.
Yep,
I have
we'll
the
definitely
same-
provide them.
Yeah, I have the same thinking, Gary, the same way. I'd like to know what's going on there.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like the more comments may be coming in from other agencies, 91 and perhaps Army Corps.
All right, thanks.
Okay. So Alex and Dealey, we're good to continue to the next meeting? Or no, I think you wanted to continue beyond to. Yeah, no.
Suggesting continuing to the 16th.
16, yeah. So approximately a month from now.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next application, notice of intent, Neshoba Brook Bakery, 152 Commonwealth Ave, DEP file number 137-1587. And I think we have Nathaniel. I think you're on mute.
Speakers are very low or something.
Better?
Can hear you now.
Okay, so my headphones have been having problems. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, so just to again say for the recording, my name is Nathaniel Cataldo. I'm with Stanton McNary. So we, revised this plan and added some more detail in response to both comments from the last hearing and also from the Concord engineer that we got last Friday. So this is the first sheet of the plan. So on the plan here, we provided on the upper right, we provided more, floodplain calcs that are more, in line with how the town engineer wanted to see. It's iterated by contour instead of how we were doing it before. And then right below that is, kind of blown up detail that shows where the areas that are being filled are and where the compensatory storage areas are. So basically, like kind of like we talked about the last meeting, the fill is the result of the walkway being, ever so slightly raised, kind of in the middle and towards the edge of it. Just work with the grade and to better come up to the door. And then the compensatory area is the result of the part of the walkway that's being taken away. So that's all that volume is going to be, taken out. And it works out, greater than a ratio of 1 to 1.5 as, as it's supposed to. And in addition to that, in the area where the walkway is going to be removed, we had worked with, we got, a little guidance from conservation staff on the, the extent of plants they wanted to see. So we provided a bunch of low cover shrubs that's going to fully cover the, I guess the new planting area, which is going to be in the area that the walkway is taken out. It'll obviously that'll, better restore the area and whatnot. And that is pretty much it in terms of comments. And just to get ahead of it, the town engineer also did have a comment about how the bollards were coming out, and I talked to him about it today. And really, he said it was only just as like an assurance that cars wouldn't drive down. However, there really aren't any there right now. I had shared some pictures with Delia this afternoon. They're just remnants, like a couple inches high. It was like they were taken out, so they really don't serve any purpose. And given that the walkway is going to be a lot shorter, a lot less wide than it is now, it's only going to be 5 feet. It would be impossible for a car to drive down. So we don't really see the need to put a new one in there, considering that the rehabilitated walkway will be, better suited for walking and not really possible to drive down. So that is pretty much it. I can take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Do any of the commissioners have any commentary in regard to the revised plans?
Is there any likelihood that, I know it jogs there, it doesn't seem to be very suitable for bicycles either. Is that, would that be what you'd say? In terms of traffic? I don't know. I'm asking a question the engineer might ask.
As in, is it likely for one to drive down there? I mean, I don't really see any need to. There is a door. I guess there's a back door back there.
Yeah, I mean, I was only thinking if you go down to the bridge, if you're trying to cut over to the parking lot on the other side, I'm just asking.
I mean, I don't really think so. I mean, it's not adverse to it, but I mean, there's really nothing in place that would stop it. I mean, I really don't see any need to, I mean, it's pretty.
It gets very narrow at one point. I agree.
Yeah, especially around the kind of where the bump out in the building is. I mean,
right.
I don't think it's like a safety issue, and I also don't really think it's encouraged. So.
Okay.
Any other comments from the commission? I just had one comment, Nathaniel. Delia, do you have a picture that you could pull up of the existing condition? I was just wondering, where you're cutting out and doing the plantings along the edge there. And I did see in the picture that there seems to be some boards along the rail edge there. But when you replace the fencing, is there going to be some boards put back or a metal edge to retain the plantings and the soil you're going to put in there so it doesn't fall over the retaining wall? Nathaniel, can't hear you again.
Okay.
Try again. Not yet.
Hold on. Is that working?
Yeah.
Yes, now.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
I don't
you.
know. I need new headphones. Sorry about that.
Looks like it.
It's really hard to say. I mean, they're obviously going to, they're going to take the pavement out and, it's going to be a little bit lower. I mean, they'll have a little bit of room to kind of, I guess, level the ground out. I know the wall is going to be there and they're replacing it with like the metal fence. You can actually kind of see it in the way back of this picture here. It's like they're going to continue like the fence. So, although that's not like a solid, wall, it should, help prevent like a plant from falling over, obviously, like
Yeah, I'm not worried about the plants necessarily. They'll be planted. I'm just looking about the soil and any kind of ground cover you have there. Kind of, in a heavy rain, would it just flow back over the? I can't tell. Is that a wood board or is that part of a concrete shelf there that comes up beyond the pavement?
It's kind of just like a wooden. I mean, let me maybe I have a better picture.
Oh, this is a wood. Yeah. So
yeah, it's like wood.
Yeah,
So
I
does
guess
that
I
go,
would,
does it go all the way along the wood piece?
Stops kind of right where that fence is, and then it transitions to just like the metal fence that's way down there. I can try to look at
But
can
the
try-
walkway isn't being replaced in this location here, right? It's just.
no, yeah.
really-
So it'll kind of look like what it looks like over there, except it won't be all pavement right up to the edge.
Okay.
yeah,
kind
I
of
guess
just
I would just
be-
make a
So I-
recommendation that you want to contain that soil on the backside in the planting bed. That's all.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, if I can just follow up with Ed's thought, is this, and I didn't look at it from the standpoint, I just happened to go there today. Is this tending to flow away, currently flowing away from the house to the river? Or is it flowing towards the front, towards the parking lot now?
Like
Right
this
now,
way.
yeah, it pitches away from the building towards where the river is, kind of, yeah.
You just wonder if they were doing this, and I don't know how extensive it is, if they slightly swaled the path so the water ran away from the house and ran away from the river into a little bit of a swale and brought it out toward the parking lot, you would alleviate Ed's thought or problem with the erosion being as much of a problem. In effect, create a channel. Nathaniel?
Yeah,
I don't know whether you have the pitch to do that.
Yeah, that's the question. I think that's going uphill, Greg, from the
Yeah.
threshold of the back door. I think the elevation is higher.
That's what
By
I'm
the
saying.
low-
So the water would run out to the parking lot instead of, no?
No, I think the water would run down. I think it's 123
It's running in this, it's running away, sort of down
down.
this way.
Oh, well, then you can't do it. Forget it.
But I think that's a good idea to, maybe on both sides, on the brook side as well as the walkway side, to put in some steel edging or
Yeah.
something to contain that soil so it doesn't get onto the walkway or into the brook.
You can't hear you, Nathaniel. You do need new headphones.
And the other issue is, do we have roof drains, and do any of the roof drains drain down onto this walk?
I know. Does that work? Is it?
Yeah.
We're good now. I know within the grass strip, it's kind of hard to see, but the 223 contour does come around, so it's lower in the middle within the grass strip. So the grass strip kind of does have the swale you're talking about. The walkway itself is just it's so narrow it doesn't, and it would just kind of terminate where the existing walkway is anyway. But in the grass strip, the idea is, and it's reflected with the grading, the spot grades, that the middle will have a little bit of a depression to it, and the edges of it will be sloped up a little bit.
Okay.
Very because it's so small, it's very minimal amounts, but still,
And the other question is, are there any roof drains on that side of the house? That side of the store?
I am not sure, unfortunately.
I mean, if there were, they should be diverted not to come
Yeah,
down on that walkway.
You can look at the picture.
Yeah,
I think there
there's
might be.
There's no outfalls on the walkway. I know that. I've looked through the pictures and whatnot.
Okay. I didn't
Can you
see
see the
any when I went
photograph?
by, but-
No, not yet.
I don't know how to go between screens while
You're doing
sharing.
fine.
So, thank you. So this looks like, what is this here?
Looks like
That's
it's
the post behind the dumpster.
Okay.
I think it's like a metal fence post.
yeah. Looks like it's a swing post there. Yeah.
Yeah, I have that same picture, and you can see there's like a cap on the top if you
Yeah.
look
Oh, yeah.
close.
Yeah, it looks all right.
Oh, at any rate, if you could take a look at that, Nathaniel, again, just trying to safeguard debris going into the brook.
And also, I'm just noticing this 223 shouldn't that be 123?
Oh yes. Yep.
Okay. Any comment from the public regarding this application? All right. Okay, hearing none, I think we'll hold over to February 2nd. Delia, I would assume we could get an order of conditions together by then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just the big comment there was kind of have pitch the walkway such that it pitches down towards the middle and terminates at the end of where the pavement is, I guess, right?
Well,
I think because you're so
don't you have to
limited.
hold your elevations now, given this cut and fill and the storage volumes, right? I don't think you want to, if you change that,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to change.
So
those
what is it that, I think, just so I
The
have
main
it clear, what
thrust
is
of the
the,
comment. Yeah, the main thrust of the comment is to make sure the soil is contained, that it's not
That's all.
gonna, in a heavy storm, that the soil is not gonna wind up in the brook.
I mean, if you
Mhm.
get a major, rainstorm and it's slowly sheeting through that light ground cover plantings, you might get some, spillage over into the brook. That's all. It's a relatively straightforward comment, if you will.
Ed, Suzanne
Delia, you have a
Spinney
raised
has-
hand.
Thanks. I've been working with the bakery on this. I just want to add that this back,
Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
Suzanne Spinney, 270 Fisk Street, Carlisle.
Thank you.
That back walkway is also the new handicap accessible entry. So in terms of pitch and swale, we need to be cognizant of that. I mean, that I think is separate from the issue of retaining the debris from the planting strip.
But it is
good
also,
point.
I was gonna mention it earlier, it's also a reason not to have a bollard there, because you want to allow access.
Oh, yeah, we got to get rid of all that. That's part of
Okay.
the plan. Just make it smooth.
Okay, so we'll continue this to the second to work up an order of conditions. And if there's and Nathaniel, if you could suggest something on the backside of that and work with Delia for I guess it would be in Friday, midday, Delia?
Yes.
Okay. You all set, Nathaniel?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. The next case is Massport Authority, 777 Virginia Road. Let's see, I think it's just a reconciliation of numbers, I believe, is what we're looking for.
We moved that to close an
Oh,
issue.
that's right.
That's,
That's right. Thank you. I'm looking on
Sorry.
the thumbnail. versus
yeah,
the
it's on
agenda.
the agenda, not the thumbnail, sorry.
Thank you very much, Delia.
Yep.
And I guess that leaves us to one new application this evening, 394 Monument Street, RDA file number 22-1. And who's here to discuss that this evening? Nathaniel, is that you? Okay, same issue, can't hear you. Might be a long one.
All right, is that good?
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you now.
All right. This is my last one, so no. God. Okay. So so just again, my name is Nathaniel from Stanton area. I will also be talking about the RDA for 394 Monument Street. So this is the plan. It's a single family house. It's bordered by the Concord River to the south, which has a bordering vegetated wetland that runs along the edge. So it projects 200-foot riverfront area on basically the entire property and a 100-foot buffer zone from the wetland. There's also bordering land subject to flooding along the back, kind of at the rear of the house. So the work consists of installing a drywall in the pavement. So really just a little background real quick. So this house has hard water, which is basically when there's a high mineral content in the water. And it's, something that it has the potential to like damage your appliances. It'll stain stuff like dishes and whatnot that you wash. But really, like I said, the big thing is it has the potential to kind of corrode and wear at your pipes and appliances and whatnot. So the homeowner is installing, and he's working with the contractor, and this is what they recommended for it. So he's installing a water softener. So it's basically a system that is going to be inside the house, and it removes the mineral content from the water, and the system produces a backwash like about once or twice a week, and the backwash is going to drain into a proposed dry well. So that's really the subject of the work here. So they're going to install just a 300-gallon small dry well underneath the existing driveway, and that will receive the backwash from the water softener. And it's going right in the existing driveway. They're just going to cut the pavement. It's a very quick, very temporary job. It'll take like a day or two to install. It's very, minimal disturbance. So we felt, an RDA was appropriate for this. They're just going to basically saw cut the pavement, dig down a few feet, put the dry well in. They're going to hook it up to the system, and they're going to pave it right over. And like I said, the purpose of it is to receive the backwash from the in-house unit that's going to soften the water, and it's sized appropriately. The contractor gave a recommended size, and this is what they recommended that we install to manage the system, and that is pretty much everything. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Looks straightforward from here. Any comments from the commissioners?
I'm just curious as to whether the backwash, are there any chemicals that come out with the backwash, or is it just, purely some mineral content?
Yeah. So basically the way it, I researched it quite a bit. So basically the way it works is that there's kind of like a salt, basically like sodium in it that, the chemical reaction is what takes the minerals out of the water. So whatever runs into the dry well, it'll be the minerals that were already in the water anyway, which are dispersing to the septic system. And there will be a little bit of the salts that it uses. But the whole point of installing a dry well is that it's going to, over time, disperse it into the ground. So there's no worries of like a high mineral content or the salt content from the system itself. It'll be dispersed over time. So there's no worry of an excess of minerals going into the ground. Hope did that answer your question?
Yep. That's it.
Okay.
So, looks good to me.
Great. All right. Is there any public comment regarding this proposal? Okay, seeing none, I think we have a recommendation.
I make a motion motion to issue a negative determination on RDA file number 22-1 with number 3, negative determination number 3 with the following conditions. 1, a pre-construction site visit shall be held with the DNR staff with the contractor to review the erosion controls and limits of work. 2, stockpiling shall occur within the existing paving driveway outside the 50-foot buffer zone. And 4, after the project has been completed, the applicant shall submit a letter to the NRC stating the work has been conducted in accordance with all conditions of this determination of applicability. Any changes from the RDA shall be described.
Second.
Oh,
Thank you, Sarah.
You again.
And we'll take the vote. Sarah,
Aye.
Gary,
aye.
Nick? Saw your hand. Greg?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Thank you, Nathaniel.
I think he said you're welcome.
Get some new headphones. All right, we're moving on to close an issue. I think we have 3 up this evening. Who would like to take on the first one? 821 Strawberry Hill Road.
I make a motion to close an issue for 821 Strawberry Hill Road, DEP file 1371580, with findings A and B, standard conditions 1 to 20, and special conditions 21 to 55.
Second.
Thank you, Greg. And the vote. Sarah,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
and Greg,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. All right, the second closing issue, 77 Westford Road. Sarah, you want to do the next?
Yep, I
two?
can keep going. Yep.
Stay on a roll.
Make a motion to close an issue for 77 Westford Road, DP file 1371588, with finding A, standard conditions 1 to 20 and special conditions 21 to 52.
Second,
Thank you, Greg. And the vote. Sarah,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Greg,
aye,
and I am an aye as well.
And I make a motion to close an issue for 777 Virginia Road, DP file 1371589, with findings A and B, standard conditions 1 to 20 and special conditions 21 to 55.
All right, thank you, Greg. And the last vote on closing issue. Sarah,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Greg,
aye.
and I am an aye as well. Thank you. All right, moving to COC, Certificates of Compliance. We've got 4 up this evening. Delia, you want to walk those through a little bit?
Sure. So the first one is for work that never commenced. There was a second order that was issued. There is a little bit of work that still needs to be done with some invasives removal. So there were 2 together that were going to be on tonight, but we've pulled the second one. However, the first one, this 1480, the work was never commenced under that order. So that is fine to go. Torrington Properties was for a demo and rebuild. They've done a nice job with their mitigation, plantings, things look good. Baxter is an old, 315 Harrington Ave is an old septic. That work was also never done. It was done under a later order of conditions that was closed out. This one also needs to be closed out. And Bushnell was for a demo and rebuilds. The work that was in NRC jurisdiction was for the septic. That is a partial because the work that the contractor has done is fine, but the homeowners have moved in and they constructed a fence that is partially within the 25-foot no disturb zone. So we're talking with them to see how they can come into compliance. So we're just recommending a partial for that. The majority of the work is complete in accordance with the plan.
Thank you, Delia. So someone want to take all 4 on as a bundle?
Sure, I'll do it.
Thank you, Nick.
Move that we issue certificates of compliance for Pisano 73 Monument Street, DEP file 1371480. Torrington Properties, 23 Fielding Street, DEP file number 1371467. Baxter, 315 Harrington Avenue, DEP file number 137777. And partial for Bushnell, 1599 Lowell Road, DEP file number 1371519.
Second,
Thanks, Greg. And the vote. Sarah,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Greg,
aye.
and I am an aye as well. All right, so then I guess we move on to the last piece of businesses this evening, discussion about perhaps updating our tree protection or our mitigation policy regarding tree removals. And I know Delia, you provided some discussion points here. Again, I think more closely to align our efforts in terms of tree removal to align more so with the town tree bylaw of 2017 and I guess the rules and regs in 2018. And I guess my simple perspective, it seems to make a lot of sense in terms of, you know, if the trees out in the setbacks in the front yard and their removal, I think it's over 6-inch diameter, where I know oftentimes trees are removed of various magnitudes in the wetland jurisdiction, but it often is replaced with a very relatively small sapling and trees. So obviously we lose a lot of, you know, diameter there in terms of removal. So I guess it's really just an open discussion in regard to, you know, how the commissioners feel about trying to further align that those efforts in jurisdiction, and then there's a further discussion about administrative approvals, which again, we see a fair amount of homeowners coming in, whether they would like to remove the trees because they think they pose a danger, or and obviously in certain cases they're diseased and, you know, in poor shape and should be removed. So there's kind of at least two aspects to it.
And yeah, I mean, my feeling is we definitely should be consistent with the tree protection bylaw, and on wetlands and natural lands, I think it's just as important to replace trees as outside of that area. So I'm definitely in favor of this. And I strongly support the idea that just, you know, because it's an invasive, you know, if you have a mature Norway maple that is removed, I think you should mitigate for that. You don't have to mitigate with an invasive. You can mitigate with another kind of tree, but you should be replacing the habitat.
Yeah.
So
The only question I have is, if we're now asking for the larger trees to be replaced instead in the wetlands area, and maybe I'm just not visualizing this correctly, but are we at risk of more disruption? And, you know, is this from a practical point of view going to become an issue with people, you know, trying to get diggers in there or things like that? Or do you think that's not going to happen?
Well, and along that line, because I thought similarly, Sarah, I'm in favor of this idea, don't get me wrong, but I don't want people to, the tree bylaw allows you to take the trees down. All you have to do is compensate. There's no decision as to whether you can take them down. So this is incompatible with the tree bylaw in that to that extent. And it's also incompatible with the tree bylaw because the tree bylaw doesn't make you replace invasives. So I think we just want to know that that's what we're doing here. The other part I don't want to happen is because there is a financial issue in now, there will be a greater financial issue. Wouldn't want somebody to design their patio or whatever around taking the oak down because it's cheaper to take the smaller oak than the big Norway maple. We on the NRC want the invasives out of there. So we don't want to, just thinking that through, we don't want to make it where that gets left. And I definitely think putting something in there about having the snags is a great idea. And I don't know whether we give a bone back if you're willing to leave snags, figure some verbiage. You know, if you leave 2 snags, we'll alleviate so much girth to the tree penalty or whatever.
Or is it, yeah, like you say, is it 25% versus 50%?
Yeah,
Or
if
something
you'll
to that
do,
effect.
yeah, if you'll help us in a different way, and it would have to be more than, you know, if it's right up next to the house, you know, the snag is going to come down and they're going to cut it, you know, come back to us to cut it down. So it has to be some sort of leeway. But I think in general, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I also saw in the tree bylaw that today that what is exempt is hazardous and diseased. And again, under the administrative approvals, we see, you know, rightfully so, perhaps a fair amount of folks coming in saying, I think this poses a hazard. And obviously that they'll have an arborist, but, you know, there's, I guess that's the question too, right? Because it could be hazardous. It's not necessary, you know, there's some speculation in that too. So where do you draw that line in terms of that aspect under the administrative approvals?
Well, and currently it's the trees that are obviously in our jurisdiction. The tree bylaw only has to do with the buffer on the tear down, correct, Gary? It's not,
No.
or a certain percentage of
50% rebuild.
expanding the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody who doesn't expand their house or expands very little can take every tree down on the lot. Whereas this, you know, we just want to make sure we understand what we're doing when we say we're trying to be compatible with the tree bylaw, and we aren't, we're sort of stepping on our toes, even though I agree, it's almost like I'd like the tree bylaw to coincide with our bylaw and then change ours, Gary.
That's what I was going to say to your first point. I think that there are a lot of people who are not very happy with the tree bylaw. They feel like it should be more stringent. And so I think if we go in that direction, I think it's asking the planning board to catch up.
Yeah, but I don't want it to go out that we think we are, because we shouldn't probably say much about the tree bylaw. Let's just do this on our own so that people don't say, well, wait a minute, the tree bylaw doesn't say, I'm not in the buffer. Why do I have to do that? You know, wait a minute, why are we aligning ourselves, even though that's probably a lot of those discussions created this. I agree.
It's conceptually trying to catch up with them at this point and then, you know, take it from there. But I get your point, right? We don't have to be led by the bylaw.
Our mandate is to protect wetlands and habitat, and we feel like this is an appropriate measure to do that. And, you know, we see value in invasives. So we're
going to use the compensation, everything similar to the tree bylaw, but that's the comparison, the tree bylaw, not, you know, because
we're using similar mechanisms. Exactly.
Correct.
And to the point that I think Sarah first raised about, you know, will you do more damage if you go in there with diggers to, you know, plant trees? You know, that's why there is an alternative also. You can just pay.
Yeah, you can just pay. Yeah.
If you feel like it's, you know, going to be complicated or it's going to be damaged.
But we sort of just to make it perfectly clear, we are not waiving our right to refuse to let the tree come down.
Right. Understood.
Just, we all agreed to that, which you can't buy it. You can't buy the tree.
Right. So
I'm saying the planning board, the tree bylaw, you know, allows you to take them down, Gary. The tree preservation bylaw, you can just take them down and pay for it or put in similar, you know, girth of tree. We're not giving up our authority to say, no, you can take none of those trees down. We don't care if you want to pay for them. You can't take them down. I mean, it's quite a different.
Oh, right.
Yeah. The initial
I don't want
premise
it
is much
misinterpreted.
different.
That's my fear, is that people are going to go away with the wrong impression of what we're trying to do. We just want maybe more acknowledgement of what you have to put back or pay. And we're going to use their standard to keep that standard the same. But that's, we're not the tree bylaw.
Right.
People have been pushing me for this for a long time, so.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So Delia, do you think staff, if you will, could start to think about drafting something along these lines? Kind of riffing off the tree bylaw to a degree, but obviously the preamble is much different.
Yep. Yes. I won't have something for you for the next meeting.
There's no, I don't think there's any grand rush.
Just the grant is taking up a lot of time in this acquisition. So,
absolutely.
But yes, we can certainly pull something together. One thing I was talking with our land manager about was ideas. What could we do about making sure that, you know, enforcing that this is actually happening? You know, it's one thing under an order of conditions where we have that follow through with the as-built. For RDAs and for administrative approvals, I think what we could do, and these were suggestions from Will, was just to have the homeowner submit photographs or to submit their planting, you know, their receipts. Sometimes those do contain calipers. Obviously, they would contain numbers. So I think we can ask for this information. It's we'll see how well that works. We already keep a spreadsheet of administrative approvals. Karen and I have talked about just adding a column to that just to say documentation received or something like that. So we'll have some way of tracking it.
But staff does review in the field, right? I'm looking at your note that, you know, general practice has been applicants mark the trees and staff reviews, because I guess what I'm looking for is thinking again in terms of what Greg's saying. If we're not copying the tree preservation bylaw, but we are looking to similar mechanisms, they have to submit a tree management plan. we're not going to have a tree management plan. We're going to have staff review what applicants are suggesting, and staff will be the enforcement mechanism.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's an appropriate distinction to make. You know, a lot of times with these tree preservation bylaw projects, it's a developer coming in and doing a demo and rebuild. And so they're absorbing that cost. And when we're doing these, you know, smaller, you know, certainly RDAs and administrative approvals, it's the homeowner. And I don't think we want to start asking them to do these tree preservation,
Management
No.
plans.
No.
you know, that plan that requires, you know, an arborist, a landscaper, landscape architect. I mean, they're not cheap. So I think we want to, you know, I mean, I think I've thought about this a little bit, that we don't want to make this too onerous. I think we have a good track record with homeowners coming and saying, hey, can I remove this tree? Because they know that there's good, you know, dialogue with the commission. And I don't want to make this too burdensome where people think, oh my God, I'm not going to go and pay $3.75 per inch for that
Yeah.
removal. So
Yeah.
I think you know, that's something we should be thinking about as well, is the burden to a homeowner versus when it's a development prospect.
Yep.
And we can sort of flesh that out a little bit in the draft. And this will be a policy. I don't think we want to bring this to a bylaw at this point, right? I think we're just talking policy.
Correct.
Which is where I think, you know, Greg was coming from, and I think he's absolutely right. This is not the same thing. We're doing our own policy, you know, that
Well,
meets.
Yep.
We think
I
needs
mean,
to
I think
be.
it gives us a little flexibility to adjust it where, and I don't know, is the word common sense or working it out with somebody in terms of safety? And I mean, some people come with trees that are, you know, pine trees that are standing, you know, 18 feet from their house, 80 feet high. It's going to cost them enough to take it down. And they can't insure their house. And that's happening. I just want to let you know, in transfer of property, when a house gets purchased, it's the new insurance company. Now, because our houses cost so bloody much, they usually send an agent out within a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, and they tell the homeowner, you have to take those trees down within 45 days, or we're canceling the policy.
Are those agents, are they arborists, or are they
They're
you know,
insurance,
real-
they're
I mean-
insurance people, they're insurance adjusters or whatever they're called.
Right.
That work for the insurance company, that come out, don't even know they're out there, and they send an official letter, and then the people freak out.
Right.
And Greg, have you seen any kind of rule of thumb on that, just broadly, 50 feet from the house, 100 feet from the house, 25 feet from the house? Just curious.
I haven't paid attention to it that much,
Okay.
and it doesn't, and the worst part of it is, it isn't consistent.
Yeah. Of course.
I warn
there-
people when they're the buyers, I warn them that, hey, those 2 trees, you may get told that you have to get those down within 2 months. It'll be a month before you get the letter, and they're gonna give you a month. Just be prepared to take those trees down. Never happens. Then sometimes it happens. I don't know the answer. It's not.
I think it's just different underwriting standards.
Right. Or people just being, just catching up with it. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the discussion. And thank you, Delia, for the write-up.
Absolutely.
All right. And with that,
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second,
thank you, Nick. And the vote. Sarah,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Nick,
aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I am an I as well. Thank you all. Thank you, Delia.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.
You too.